Meeting in Rio de Janeiro, 20 years after the last pathetic meeting in Rio de Janeiro, where they all got together and stayed in five-star hotels and ate gourmet meals and signed a letter about how we promise we're going to make a difference. They never make a difference. That's where they coined the word sustainable back in 1992. You know what sustainable means? Business as usual under another name. We'll just call everything sustainable and we can sell it. That's all it's about. There's no sustainable fishery in the world today. Not one. The oceans are dying. And they're dying because of this thing, what we call, I call it the economics of extinction. There's money to be made by driving species extinct. And the bluefin tuna is a good example. One fish is worth 50,000 euros. One fish. With that kind of price on its head, its chances of survival are not very good. One fish. But as the numbers in the ocean go down, the price for the ones in the warehouses go up. And Mitsubishi and other companies are putting them into warehouses. They got a 10-year supply. And if there's no more bluefin tuna in our oceans, and the only bluefin tuna left are in Mitsubishi's warehouses in Japan, a half a million euro fish is what we're talking about, and billions of profits for Mitsubishi. They want the fish to go extinct because diminishment translates into higher prices. And this is happening all over the world. They don't care about the future. They just care about short-term investment for short-term gain. And now what they're doing is robbing all future generations. So what's the world going to look like in 100 years? You know what I find really amazing is when politicians say, oh, that's okay, the United Nations said that our fisheries will not collapse until 2048. So that's fine if you were just born last year and by the time you're 50 years old, there's no more fishing industry, but that's okay, that's your problem. It's not our problem. We're going to eat our monkfish and our salmon and our cod and our bluefin tuna, and fuck you. You know, that's pretty much what we're saying to future generations. And that's where we've got to intervene. Because we represent the majority. All of those people who have yet to be born from here on in. We're representing them. And they need us to take a stand. So I don't know what's going to happen if they send me back to Costa Rica. It really doesn't matter. What will be. But we certainly intend to use this whole case as a way to focus on the big problem, the killing of our sharks and the destruction of our oceans. And I'm going to do everything I can to put the attention on that particular thing. If I go to Costa Rica, I go to Costa Rica. But I'll tell you one thing, if I do go to Costa Rica, and I do get killed in Costa Rica, the government of Germany will be responsible. And they should be aware of that. But then again, they might not care, which wouldn't be that unusual. But anyway, Sea Shepherd will continue without me. Our campaigns in the South Pacific are going ahead right now. Our vessels left last week. And to protect sharks in Fiji and Tonga and places like that, that's where they're going right now. And in December, our vessels will head to the Southern Ocean, 4 ships, to go after the Japanese whaling fleet. And our campaign this year is called Operation Zero Tolerance because our objective is not a single whale to be killed. I think we're finally in a position where we have the equipment and the people and the means and the experience to shut them down 100%. So that's our goal. And of course, we have our Cove Guardian program, so we send people from September 1st to March 1st to Taiji, Japan, to be there to oppose the killing of the dolphins. We'll be opposing and continuing to go after the bluefin tuna fishermen in the Mediterranean, protecting seals in Namibia, trying to stop the destruction of the plankton in the Southern Ocean also. There's so many things that we got involved with. But we're just one small organization. And what's going to make a difference is hundreds of thousands of small organizations. We can't depend upon the big organizations to do anything. They're not going to do anything. You know, there's too much money involved. Once you get big, you become useless. So we need small organizations and addressing different things. 100,000 organizations addressing 100,000 different things, protecting the orangutans in Indonesia, protecting the elephants, protecting coral reefs. This is what I try to get people to address. Look at what you're passionate about and get involved. Because I can't think of anything more noble than dedicating yourself to protecting a species or an ecosystem. Because of Dian Fossey, mountain gorillas continue to survive in Rwanda. Because of Jane Goodall, people are aware of the problems with the chimpanzees. Because of Barute Galdikas, orangutans are being protected in Indonesia. Because of David Wingate, the Bermuda storm petrel, a little bird in Bermuda, is not extinct. That one man had prevented that bird from becoming extinct. That's where we make a difference, on that level. And this is what we try to encourage with our crew, is this understanding that each and every one of us, you and I, have the power to make that difference. And we don't all have to do it by getting on a ship and chasing a whaling boat. All we have to do is what we do best. If you're a writer, if you're a builder, if you're a lawyer, if you're a teacher, you do it for the future, you do it for the planet, and that diversity makes a movement. The strength of an ecosystem in diversity, the strength of a movement is in diversity. And that's the kind of diversity that we're trying to encourage. I'll just finish off with a story about why I'm so dedicated to protecting whales. And it goes back to 1975, and Robert Hunter and I organized the first Greenpeace campaign to protect whales. It was against the Soviet whaling fleet in the Pacific. And we had come up with this idea. We were reading a lot of Gandhi at the time, and we felt that all we had to do was put ourselves between the harpoon and the whales, and the Russians wouldn't dare kill a whale because they might risk killing us. Like I said, it sounded good when we read Gandhi. But Bob and I found ourselves in a small little rubber boat in front of a Soviet harpoon vessel that was traveling at about 20 knots and chasing 8 magnificent sperm whales that were running away from it, trying to get away. So we found ourselves in that position, and I maneuvered the boat to block the harpoon. And every time the harpooner tried to get a shot, I would block it with the harpoon. And this worked for about 25 minutes. And then the captain came out and came up the catwalk and screamed into the ear of the harpooner, and then he looked at us and he smiled and he went like this. And that's when I realized Gandhi's not going to work today. And a few moments later, there was this incredible explosion, and the harpoon flew over our head and slammed into the backside of one of the whales in front of us and exploded, and she screamed. She screamed. It was like a woman in pain. It was hard to really describe. We were in total shock at that. She screamed and rolled on her side, a fountain of blood everywhere, and suddenly the largest whale in the pods rose up out of the water, smacked the water with his tail, and disappeared. And he swam straight underneath of us. And he threw himself out of the water straight at the harpooner on the Soviet vessel to protect his pod. But they were waiting for him. They put in another harpoon, an unattached harpoon, and they pulled the trigger at point blank range, hit him in the head, and he screamed and fell back into the water with 2 dying whales around us, blood everywhere. And as he was rolling around in agony on the surface, I saw his eye. And he looked at me and he dove. And now I saw a trail of bloody bubbles coming at us real fast. And he came up and out of the water at an angle. So the next movement was to fall down on us and crush us. And as his head rose up out of the water, and I saw that eye come out of the water, an eye that was the size of my fist, what I saw there, that is what changed my life forever, because I saw understanding. That whale understood what we were trying to do. And I'll never forget my own reflection in the eye of that whale. That's how close it was. And as he came up, he pulled himself back, and his body began to slide back into the sea, and I saw his eye disappear beneath the surface, and he died. Could have killed us, and he chose not to do so. And he had every right to do so, but he chose not to do so. I owe my life to that whale. But I saw something else in that eye. Pity, and not for himself, for us. How could we do something so merciless? How could we take life without any thought? And for what? the Russians weren't eating the whales. They were using the oil for high heat resistant machinery. And one of the most valuable things that they were using spermaceti oil for was the construction of intercontinental ballistic missiles. I said, here we are, destroying this incredibly beautiful, intelligent, socially complex, beautiful creature for the purpose making a weapon meant for the mass extermination of human beings. And that's when it hit me. We are insane, ecologically insane to support that. And so, from that moment on, I said to myself, we do what we do for them, not for people. For them. Our clients are whales. Our clients are sharks and seals and sea turtles. That's who we represent. So when people say, oh, I disagree with your tactics, so find me a whale that disagrees with our tactics. You know, we don't represent people. We represent whales. But we do it responsibly. We've never injured anybody. We've never killed anybody. And in 1985, I had a Tibetan Buddhist monk come to my ship in Seattle, and he gave me this little statue, and he said, I've been asked to give this to you, and could you put it up on your topmast, and it's for protection and everything. And I said, sure, okay, but what's it about? He says, I've just been asked to give it to you. And so I guess when a Tibetan Buddhist monk comes along and gives you a little statue and tells you to put it up in the mast, why not? So we put it up there. I didn't think anything of it until 1989, 4 years later. I had the great opportunity to meet with and speak with the Dalai Lama. And I brought a picture of this, and I showed it to the Dalai Lama. I said, what is this? And he looked at me, he says, I sent that to you. And I said, what is it? He says, it's called Hayagriva. And I said, well, what's that mean? He says, it's the symbol for the compassionate aspect of Buddha's wrath. And so I said, what's that mean? And he says, you never want to hurt anybody, but sometimes when they cannot see enlightenment, scare the hell out of them until they do. So he understood what we were doing, what I call aggressive non-violence. We don't hurt people, but we destroy their equipment. And to me, that's an act of non-violence. You destroy a harpoon, you destroy a rifle, you destroy a whaling ship, you're saving lives. And the act of saving lives is non-violent. And as Martin Luther King once said, you cannot commit an act of violence against a non-living thing. But if you commit an act of so-called destruction against a physical object meant to kill somebody, that is an act of non-violence. And so Sea Shepherd is a very non-violent organization, if you accept that. But in a society where property is more important than life, people accuse us of being violent. And that's why we get called all sorts of names. But, like I said, we haven't been convicted of a single crime. And 2 years ago, I was invited actually to speak to the FBI in Quantico in the United States. They actually paid me to give them a lecture at the FBI Academy. And the question period, one of the FBI agents said, well, you know, Sea Shepherd's walking a pretty damn fine line when it comes to the law. And I said, yeah, but who cares how fine it is as long as you don't cross the line. So they couldn't argue with that. But then one of them said, well, yes, but you're training people to be eco-terrorists. And people who join your crew can go on and become eco-terrorists. I said, well, I can't be responsible for what people do when they're not under my command and they're not with Sea Shepherd. And he said, yeah, well, you train them. You're responsible. I said, okay, I got 3 names for you. Timothy McVeigh, Lee Harvey Oswald, and Osama bin Laden. You trained them, you're responsible. So don't give me that crap. It's a double standard that we have to deal with all the time. The fact is, the most non-violent movement that has ever existed on the planet has been the environmental conservation movement. 360 environmentalists have been murdered, and yet most people aren't even aware of it. But not one single person that we have opposed has been killed, not one. So they're always pointing their finger, but it's all just public relations. The most violent people on this planet are the people who are destroying the planet, not the people who are saving the planet. So thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you very much for your support. And we have the support of divers around the world, so all of you who are divers are very appreciative of that.